Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something pretty central for a lot of folks,
Mm,
building wealth and making sure retirement is secure.
absolutely. You sent over some really detailed sources on this.
Yeah, and our mission here isn't just to skim the surface. We want to really pull out those actionable strategies, the key insights, things that can actually help listeners refine their own financial path.
Exactly. And the materials cover quite a range, don't they? From like the fundamental mindset shifts needed
Right.
all the way to very specific tools and investment tactics. It's about giving everyone a sharper lens, really.
And let's be honest, financial advice can feel overwhelming, like trying to find your way through a maze sometimes.
Oh, definitely. So much information, often conflicting advice, too.
So what we're aiming for in this deep dive is to cut through some of that noise. Focus on what your sources suggest are the most, practical and impactful steps someone could take. So where do we kick things off?
I think a good starting point based on the materials is that cornerstone mindset and those initial steps that sometimes get overlooked.
Okay, mindset and first steps. Let's unpack that. One of the first things that really jumped out from the Be a Millionaire Next Year source was how it immediately challenges that title, right? The whole millionaire in a year idea.
Yeah, it pushes back on that get-rich-quick myth pretty hard.
It emphasizes that building real, lasting wealth, it's not an overnight thing. It takes time, consistent effort, and maybe a real shift in how we think about money. It's a long game.
And what makes it quite relatable, I thought, was how the author shares his own past stumbles.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
He wasn't always perfect. Talks about, lottery tickets, getting caught in the housing bubble.
Even cashing out a 401k, I think.
Exactly. It sends a message that success isn't about, zero mistakes. It's more about learning, adjusting as you go.
That definitely makes the whole thing feel less intimidating.
Yeah.
So from those lessons learned, the book kind of guides you towards making smart choices.
Right. And importantly, not just about the numbers. It considers happiness, overall well-being, too.
So a key part of that initial phase is really getting a handle on debt, any debt that's weighing you down,
Crucial.
and just becoming way more conscious about where your money's actually going, spending intentionally, not just on autopilot.
Which flows really naturally into this core idea of a save-first mentality.
Pay yourself first, basically.
Exactly. Thinking of savings and investments not as leftovers, but as essential bills.
Right.
Right up there with rent or the mortgage, you prioritize it.
Okay, and this connects nicely with another source you shared, the Rich by Retirement workbook. That one seems aimed more at people who might feel like they're starting later.
Yeah, it directly addresses playing catch-up, especially for folks in their, say, 40s, 50s, or even older, how to get back on track if you feel you need to.
Makes sense.
And it offers a really concrete first step for that save first thing. Find more money.
Find more money.
Which means basically doing a deep dive into your current spending. Everything. Mortgage, car payments, down to the, daily coffee.
Scrutinizing it all.
Precisely. Identifying where you might be able to trim the fat, find those savings, big or small.
And the sources actually give some pretty solid examples, don't they? Like phone plans.
Oh yeah, the Republic Wireless example was quite specific, showing how their no-contract plans could be way cheaper than, say, a major carrier like Verizon.
It definitely makes you pause and think, okay, what am I paying?
It's a great prompt. Another one was gym memberships.
Right, calculate the cost per visit.
Yeah, they suggest this threshold, like if it's costing you more than maybe $5 every time you actually go.
And maybe rethink it. Look at home workouts or something.
Exactly. Could free up a decent chunk of cash each month, potentially.
Clothing was another one.
Ooh.
Maybe unexpected for some.
Definitely. The advice wasn't just buy less, but explore other options. Consignment shops, online, secondhand.
Even selling stuff you don't wear anymore.
Right. And I liked the point about clutter itself having a cost. Not just space, but emotionally draining too.
That's a good point. Clearing out can feel good.
And groceries, of course. A big budget item for most households.
The usual suspects here. Shopping lists, bulk buying.
Yep. Lists are key. Bulk buying for staples you'll use. Hunting for deals online, using coupons consistently. Small savings, but they add up over time.
Okay, here's one that feels fundamental, but maybe easy to forget. Checking your credit report.
Annually, yeah. Crucial.
The book specifically calls out annualcreditreport.com as the official free place to do it.
And warns against those other sites that might try to sell you stuff. Knowing your score, making sure it's accurate, that affects interest rates so much.
Definitely foundational.
So once you've hopefully found some extra cash by cutting back, the next step is embedding that pay yourself first habit.
Like we said, treating savings and investments as non-negotiable.
Exactly. It forces that long-term perspective instead of just focusing on this month's bills.
And the sources really stress the danger of delaying, don't they? The cost of waiting to save.
Oh, hugely. Time is your biggest ally with compounding. Even putting it off a few years can make a massive difference down the line. Starting now, even small, is key.
And for those listeners, maybe in their 50s, feeling that time pressure.
The Rich by Retirement workbook calls it the catch-up decade and points out government incentives.
Like the catch-up contributions in retirement plans.
Exactly. Once you hit 50, many plans like 401k or 403bs let you contribute more than the standard limit.
The example they used for a 403b back in 2016 was, what, the standard limit plus an extra $6,000 for those 50 plus.
Something like that, yeah. A significant boost. So definitely worth checking with your employer about what's available in your specific plan. Pension plans, too. Sometimes you can accelerate payments.
Good tip.
And if anyone wants to visualize the impact of saving consistently,
The bank rate compound interest calculator.
yep, plug in your own numbers. It can be really motivating to see how even small amounts grow over time with compounding.
Okay, great. So, mindset adjusted, finding money, prioritizing saving. Now let's pivot to actually growing those savings, the investment strategies.
Right. This brings us to step 4. Use averages to beat averages, which is all about dollar cost averaging.
Investing a set amount regularly, no matter what the market's doing.
Precisely, like say $100 every single month. Sometimes you buy low, get more shares. Sometimes you buy high, get fewer. But over the long haul, your average cost tends to be lower than if you tried to time things perfectly.
Which is notoriously hard to do.
Almost impossible consistently. So this takes the emotion out, keeps you investing steadily.
And it lines up really well with that Warren Buffett advice the sources mentioned.
Yeah, his thing about just regularly buying low-cost index funds.
Like farming, right?
Yeah.
Keep planting. Don't worry too much about the daily weather.
It's such a great analogy for long-term investing, consistent action.
And the sources even listed some specific examples of those low-cost index funds.
It did. Things like VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF.
Covers the whole U.S. market.
Right. Or IWV, the iShares Russell 3000, similar broad exposure. SPY for the S&P 500, the big guys.
And international options, too. EFA and EM.
Yep, EFA for developed markets outside the U.S., EEM for emerging markets. The key is broad diversification at a really low cost, low expense ratios.
Which leads perfectly into step 5. Increase your wealth by spreading the risk. Diversification 101.
The classic don't put all your eggs in one basket. By spreading investments across different assets, stocks, bonds, international, etc., you reduce the overall bumpiness, the volatility.
If one sector is down, maybe another is up, offsetting the losses.
Exactly. And they mention a 20-year study comparing individual growth stocks versus a diversified portfolio.
What did that show?
Well, some single stocks shot the lights out, sure, but they also had huge potential drops. The diversified portfolio gave steadier returns, much less severe maximum losses, more stable growth over time.
Okay, but then there was that counterpoint, wasn't there, from Michael Carr?
Ah, yes, the contrarian view. He argued that too much diversification actually waters down your returns.
His threshold was like 20 stocks. Beyond that, you just track the market average.
That was his argument, yeah. That it limits your ability to really beat the market if you own too many things.
Interesting perspective.
It is. But the overall message from the sources, especially for passive investors, people not actively trading based on technical signals like CAR,
Is that broad diversification is still the safer, more prudent path for most people.
generally, yes. That seems to be the consensus for long-term wealth building and risk management.
Okay. Now, shifting focus a bit for listeners closer to or in retirement, say 60 plus, thinking about income.
This is where step 6, seek cash flow, comes in. The focus shifts from just accumulation to actually generating income to live on.
And a huge piece of that puzzle is Social Security, right? When to claim it.
Absolutely critical. And it can feel complex. The basic trade-off is generally the longer you wait up to age 70, the higher your monthly check will be. But, we don't know how long we'll live.
That's the tricky part. The sources lay out those key age milestones, though.
Yeah. There are survivor benefits to consider. Then the earliest you can claim your own retirement benefits is 62.
But that's at a reduced amount.
Right, permanently reduced. Then you have your full retirement age, or FRA.
Which depends on your birth year. Somewhere between 66 and 67 for most people now.
Correct. That's when you get 100% of your calculated benefit, your PIA, primary insurance amount.
Gotcha.
But here's the kicker. delaying past your FRA up to age 70.
That's where those delayed retirement credits come in.
Exactly. You get an 8% increase in your benefit for every year you wait past FRA, up to 70. That's a guaranteed return, essentially.
So the example they gave, someone with a $2,000 PIA is 66.
Waiting until 70 could boost that monthly payment to around $2,640. And that higher amount is for life. It's significant.
But it's not just about the numbers, right? There are personal factors.
So many. Marital status is huge, coordinating with the spouse, especially if earnings histories differ. Who takes it when?
Life expectancy, obviously. Your own health, family history. Do people in your family tend to live a long time?
Critical, though impossible to know for sure. Your current health status plays a role too. Might make sense to claim earlier if health is a concern.
What about working? Can you work and get benefits?
You can, but if you claim before your full retirement age, there's an earnings limit. Earn too much, and they temporarily reduce your benefits.
But that limit disappears once you hit FRA.
Correct. After full retirement age, you can earn as much as you want with no penalty to your benefits.
And then just lifestyle. Do you want the money sooner for travel or hobbies, or prioritize maximizing income later?
Deeply personal choice. And one more thing, even if you claim early, if you keep working and have high earning years later on, Social Security might recalculate your benefit higher down the road.
Oh, interesting. So it's not always set in stone.
Not entirely. The key takeaway really is to understand your options and make an informed choice based on your circumstances. More savings gives you more flexibility here too.
Okay, that makes sense. We've hit saving, investing, Social Security. Let's circle back to Chapter 2 of that Millionaire Next Year book, the Think Like a Millionaire part.
Right. And the core message there wasn't just about thinking like one, but understanding the actions that follow that mindset.
They interviewed 5 actual millionaires
Yeah.
who now help others, right?
Yeah, to distill those key actions. And a big theme was investing in what you understand.
Don't chase hot stocks in sectors you know nothing about.
Pretty much. Stick to your circle of competence, what you can actually analyze and feel comfortable with.
Another big one seemed to be accepting failure as part of the process.
Definitely. Jude Miller Burke's quote, "Failures and detours are part of the road to success. If you're taking calculated risks, setbacks happen.
Like Alan Corey losing big in real estate in '08.
But then rebuilding wealth in a different field. It shows resilience, adaptability."
It connects to that Conrad Hilton quote they included. Successful people keep moving, make mistakes, but don't quit. Persistence.
Exactly. It's about action, not just ideas.
So after mindset, the book dives into part 2, saving strategies. 10 specific things millionaires often do.
Right, the habits.
And number 1, maybe not glamorous, but foundational. Budgeting. Knowing where your money goes.
Seems basic, but that Gallup poll statistic was striking. Only a third of Americans actually budget in detail.
Whereas the millionaires interviewed, like Hoffman, stressed sticking to a budget even as income grew. Intentional spending.
Strategy 2. Have a clear reason to save. A specific goal.
Motivation, right. Not just saving vaguely.
Yeah, like Hoffman aiming for a net worth goal by a certain time, or Corey saving for that down payment makes the discipline easier.
Strategy 3. Viewing money as capital to invest, not just spend.
That beef once or milk forever analogy from Stovall's grandfather. Building an income stream, not just a one-off gain. I like that.
Me too. Okay, jumping ahead. Strategy 5. Get professional advice, but don't pay for everything. Do some legwork yourself.
Levine's trademark example lawyer does the search. She files the application herself using a free tutorial. Smart cost saving.
Strategy 6. Be frugal when starting a business. Don't overspend early on.
Levine again, cautioning against fancy offices or equipment right away. Focus on cash flow. Be resourceful.
Strategy 8. Don't feel pressured to spend big on luxuries to look successful.
Miller Burke's story about wearing her mom's hand-me-downs at Honeywell. Real success isn't about the designer wardrobe.
Strategy 9. Incorporate your business for liability protection.
Crucial for entrepreneurs. Stovall's golf course example incorporating protects his personal assets if the business gets sued. They mention incorporate.com as a resource too.
And strategy 10, maybe a bit controversial. Be financially smart when picking a life partner.
Yeah, but it makes sense, right? A partner's financial habits and attitudes have a huge impact on your shared financial future. Compatibility matters.
Definitely something to consider. Okay, so mindset, savings habits. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of retirement income and managing money in retirement.
And a big challenge highlighted right away is finding safe, reliable income. Traditional stuff, T-bills, munis, CDs, money markets. The returns have been historically low.
Sometimes not even keeping up with inflation, which erodes your spending power.
Exactly. And while there's a ton of retirement money out there, what was the figure? $21.5 trillion back in 2014?
Something huge like that.
But Spectrum Group found many near retirees, like 55 to 64-year-olds, were worried they hadn't saved enough.
Which brings us to the famous 4% rule.
Right. Bengen's research. The idea that you could withdraw 4% of your portfolio the first year, adjust for inflation annually, and likely have the money last 30 years, usually assumed a 60-40 stock-bond mix.
But it's under scrutiny now.
Increasingly so. The landscape has changed. Persistently low bond yields, more stock market volatility, retirees carrying more debt, all question its reliability today.
So what are the alternatives discussed? Wade Pfau's idea.
Yeah, Faust suggests combining stocks with SPIA's single premium immediate annuities, kind of like insurance in reverse.
You give a lump sum, they guarantee income for life.
That's the basic idea of SPIA. Provides predictability, especially when bond returns are so low and carry interest rate risk.
David Williams was even harsher on the 4% rule, wasn't he? Called it the worst way.
He did. He advocates for annual Monte Carlo simulations, complex analyses, using factors like life expectancy, market history, IRS RMD data to guide withdrawals.
And he really emphasized duration risk in bonds.
Huge point. If interest rates rise, the price of existing bonds, especially longer-term ones, can fall significantly. His example of a 1% rate hike potentially knocking 10% off the bond portion of a portfolio was pretty stark.
So bonds aren't necessarily the safe haven people assume.
Not always, especially in a rising rate environment, which led Charlie Gipple to reframe retirement as a risk management problem.
And suggesting insurance products like indexed annuities to manage longevity risk the risk of outliving your money.
Exactly. Treating that potential shortfall as a risk worth insuring again.
There was a simpler rule mentioned too, the divide into one.
Yeah, a rough guideline. Divide your savings by your estimated remaining years. $1 million, 25 years left. Maybe spend $40K that year. Less precise, but simple.
Another approach. Learn how to buy income directly.
Building a portfolio of specific dividend stocks and bonds aimed purely at generating cash flow. Echoing Carnegie, watch that basket carefully.
What if someone reaches retirement without a big cash cushion?
The sources suggest alternatives to drawing down investments heavily right away. Maybe work a bit longer, adopt a super lean budget temporarily, especially in those critical first 10 retirement years to avoid selling low.
Sequence of returns risk. Jason Hull had specific tactics.
Yeah, 2 ideas. Buy enough immediate annuities to cover essential income, creating a floor, or open a reverse mortgage line of credit as a buffer access if needed, but no obligation to draw.
And Michael Fitzgerald's retirement transition business.
Interesting idea. Start a side business maybe 5 years before retiring, maybe fund it with a 401k loan. Gradually shift, generate income, delay tapping retirement funds fully.
Okay, lots of withdrawal strategies. Let's focus specifically on generating income through investments, particularly dividends, since fixed income is tricky now.
Right. Given low bond yields and stock market volatility, dividend-paying stocks get a lot of attention in the sources.
And the stats are pretty eye-opening. Most investors underperform the market.
True. And the market itself can go sideways for long stretches. The Dow examples from 65.82 and 99.11 show capital gains aren't guaranteed.
Which makes dividends really important. Fidelity stat 44% of total stock market return over 80 years came from dividends.
Incredible, isn't it? And studies show dividend payers have historically outperformed non-payers, often with less risk and volatility.
So a dividend is just that regular cash payment from company profits to shareholders.
Usually quarterly, yeah. And while the average S&P 500 yield might be lower now than historically, the strategy still has 2 big pluses.
1. Direct contribution to your return. 2. Often signals a strong, stable company.
Generally, yes. Companies consistently paying and growing dividends tend to be financially healthy. But big caveat, not all high dividend stocks are good buys.
Right, a super high yield can be a red flag. Falling stock price, weak fundamentals.
Exactly. The pre-2008 bank stock example is a good warning. Due diligence is key.
So what should investors look for? Payout ratio.
Yeah, what percentage of earnings are they paying out? Compare it to peers, history. Is it sustainable?
Earnings growth.
Crucial. Need profits to keep paying dividends? Look for a solid track record and future potential.
And dividend growth history.
Very important. Companies that consistently increase their dividends, dividend growers, tend to outperform, shows commitment to shareholders.
And with low rates pushing investors towards income and companies sitting on cash, potentially a good environment for dividends.
The argument is there. And reinvesting those dividends, DRPs, is highlighted as a powerful way to compound growth.
Like putting the milk back into making more milk.
Perfect analogy. The book even listed examples like T. Rowe Price, Medtronic, Lowe's, showing their long track records of dividend increases and the hypothetical growth of $10K invested over decades with reinvestment.
Impressive examples, though obviously past performance isn't a guarantee.
Always the necessary disclaimer, but it illustrates the potential power of the strategy.
Okay, dividends make sense. Now let's tackle something potentially more complex and risky. Leverage.
Using other people's money to try and make more money, essentially.
Everyday example they gave was using a credit card for gas, paid off quickly. Brief, interest-free leverage.
Right. But the bigger applications are where the risk-reward comes in. Tactic 1, buying a home with a mortgage.
The most common form of leverage for most people. Small down payment controls a larger asset, potential appreciation, inflation hedge.
Even with market downturns like 2008, long-term homeownership has often been beneficial. You get to live in it too.
Tactic 2, buying multiple homes or buildings, real estate investing.
Using bank loans, tenant rent to cover mortgages and generate cash flow, much more involved, needs research, financial savvy.
And a cash cushion is vital, right? For vacancies, repairs.
Absolutely. 3-5 years of payments as a buffer, plus insurance. Not for the faint of heart or unprepared.
Then there's buying stocks on margin, much higher risk.
Oh yeah. Borrowing from your broker to buy more stock amplifies gains and losses. You can lose more than your initial investment. Plus, you pay interest on the loan.
Leveraged ETFs were also mentioned.
Another way to get leveraged exposure without a margin account, but they have their own complexities and risks, especially with those daily reset targets. Can go wrong quickly in choppy markets.
And options. Calls and covered calls.
Options are definitely a form of leverage. Buying a call gives you the right to buy stock at a set price. Big potential payoff, but you can lose your entire premium.
Covered calls are different though, right? Selling calls on stock you already own.
Correct. It's an income strategy. You own, say, 100 shares of JPM, you sell one call option against it, you get paid the premium up front.
But you might have to sell your shares if the price goes above the strike price.
That's the trade-off. If the stock stays flat or goes down slightly, you keep the premium and the stock nice income. If it shoots up past the strike, your shares get called away, but you still profit up to that strike price plus the premium.
So it offers some downside protection and income, especially in sideways markets. The main risk is the stock falling hard.
Exactly. Below your breaking point, your purchase price minus the premium received. It's a popular strategy, but needs understanding.
Okay, leverage covered. Let's switch gears again, taxes.
Yeah.
A critical piece of keeping wealth.
Huge. And the government does provide tax advantages for retirement saving. As the book notes, incentive to save for yourself.
But your tax situation can change in retirement, right? Different income sources.
Yeah, no more salary necessarily, but maybe capital gains, dividends, IRA withdrawals, all potentially taxable. Roth IRAs are the big exception, tax-free withdrawals.
So what are some specific retirement tax strategies mentioned? Life insurance.
Bruce Elfenbein's point about properly structured and overfunded policies. The cash value can grow tax-deferred, and you might access it tax-free via loans. Complex, needs professional advice.
What about QLACs, qualified longevity annuity contracts?
Kind of a niche strategy. Use up to 25% or $125,000, whichever is less, of your IRA 401k funds to buy an annuity that pays out much later, like age 85.
Have the benefit.
The money in the QLAC grows tax-deferred and isn't subject to required minimum distributions until payments start. Tax loophole, essentially, for a portion of IRA money.
Roth IRAs, again, making optimal use.
Definitely. Tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals can help manage overall taxable income in retirement, potentially reducing taxes on Social Security. And no RMDs for the original owner. Roth conversions are a key planning tool here.
Considering a new home, how's that a tax strategy?
Raskin's idea for people who are house rich but have lots in taxable IRAs. Selling the big house, buying smaller, frees up cash that can be managed more tax efficiently than large IRA withdrawals.
Gifting assets to family.
Standard estate planning. Use the annual gift tax exclusion, $14K per person in 2016, now higher, to move assets out of your taxable estate over time without using up your lifetime exemption.
And trusts. The sources really emphasize trusts.
Andy Brantner's point. Trusts are how the rich often keep money from the IRS, legally. avoiding estate gift taxes, creditor protection, control over distributions.
Irrevocable trusts for asset protection seem key.
Walney Legal Group's perspective, yeah. Especially for professionals like doctors, dentists facing lawsuit risk. Life insurance often held in trusts, too. Early setup means more compounding, Larry Shane.
Generation skipping trusts, state tax advantages. It gets complex.
Very. Mentions specific states like South Dakota, Delaware, Alaska being trust-friendly. Jaffe. Howard Rosen talked about creditor protection even after selling a business.
What about charitable strategies? Leaving money to charity but taking income.
Charitable remainder trusts, CRTs. You donate appreciated assets, get an income stream for life, and a current tax deduction. The remainder goes to charity at your death. Raskin's example with the $500 K taxable account showed the benefits.
And the most drastic tax move.
Yeah.
Moving. Maybe to the Caribbean.
Yeah. Larry Williams' experience in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Significant tax breaks for entrepreneurs meeting residency rules. Lifestyle's a big factor too, obviously.
Or just moving to a lower tax U.S. state, Florida, South Carolina, etc. Less extreme.
A more common and practical option for many. Tax planning is definitely a long-term game.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk real estate again, but specifically after the housing bubble burst. The perspective shifted, right?
Definitely. The idea of guaranteed profit got shattered. But opportunities still exist, just need a more strategic approach.
Tactic 1. Buy and rent out. Still viable.
Potentially, yes. High rental demand in many areas due to foreclosures, tighter lending. Commuse advice focused on multifamily units.
Duplexes, small apartment buildings,
Well,
where rent from some units covers costs.
Exactly. Brenton Hayden emphasized doing the math, cash-on-cash analysis, profit investment ratio, cap rate, and professional management can be key if you don't want to be a hands-on landlord.
They listed several key calculations investors should know.
Cash-on-cash, profit investment ratio with target threshold, 5-year rate of return, cost per square foot, cap rate. Need to understand the numbers.
Tactic 2. Down home private equity. What's that?
John Brittle's strategy. Buying older homes in good locations, often needing work for redevelopment. Kind of like flipping, but maybe more substantial renovations.
He aimed to pay sellers the flipper's resale price.
Yeah, an interesting angle. Also mentioned reclaiming historic downtown homes.
And parking profits. That was different.
Roy's perspective on parking lots as a simple, passive investment. Inflation hedge, low turnover, high demand in dense areas. Less common, but potentially profitable.
Tactic 3. Home-focused hedge fund. For accredited investors only.
Right. American Homeowner Preservations Model, Newberry. Buying distressed mortgages, working with homeowners on solutions like short sales, helping homeowners aiming for investor returns, requires meeting accredited investor income and net worth rules.
And negative equity is still an issue for many.
Unfortunately, yes.
Tactic 4. Farming for fun and profit.
Hertz experience owning land for tax breaks, leasing to farmers. Also, Pete and Jerry's organic eggs model focusing on quality, partnering with small farms, getting away from commodity pricing.
So niche farming or just owning the land.
Yeah.
Or investing indirectly.
Yeah, buying stock in suppliers like Monsanto, now Bayer, Syngenta, or an agribusiness ETF like MOO. Different ways to play the agriculture theme.
Okay, interesting options. Let's talk about HSAs, health savings accounts.
Super tax advantage tool if you have a high deductible health plan, HDHP.
The triple tax advantage.
That's the key. Contributions are tax deductible, usually. Growth inside the account is tax-free. Withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are tax-free. Doesn't get better than that.
There are contribution limits, though, and catch-up for over 55s.
Correct. Annual limits set by the IRS for individuals and families, plus an extra catch-up amount if you're 55 or older. Watch out for employer contributions counting towards your limit.
Tip 3 was about extra savings in the first year.
Yeah, a potential bonus contribution allowed in some cases when you first enroll.
And the tax savings examples based on bracket really show the benefit. Tip 5. One-time IRA rollover.
You can do a one-time direct trustee-to-trustee transfer from a traditional IRA to fund an HSA up to the annual limit.
And qualified medical expenses is pretty broad.
Much broader than what you can typically deduct on your tax return. Doctor visits, prescriptions, dental, vision. Lots qualifies.
So it's great for current expenses, but also for retirement.
Big time. Money you don't use stays and grows tax-free. After age 65, you can withdraw funds for any reason without penalty. You just pay regular income tax on non-medical withdrawals, like a traditional IRA. But still no tax ever if used for medical, and no RMDs.
Good tip on choosing a provider with a free debit card and using depositaccounts.com to compare them.
Makes accessing the funds easy. Just be careful non-medical withdrawals before 65 face tax, plus a hefty penalty. Tip 8.
Got it. HSAs seem like a no-brainer if you qualify. What about the tax lien marketplace? Sounds intriguing.
It does. Basically, the government gets first claim if property taxes aren't paid. They can then sell that claim the tax lien to investors at auction.
So you're not buying the property, just the debt.
Exactly. You pay the back taxes and you're owed that amount back, plus interest and penalties, often at fairly high rates set by law, 5.36% mentioned. And the lien takes priority over mortgages.
Low entry cost, no brokers. Seems accessible.
Potentially. The homeowner usually have a redemption period to pay you back. If they do, you get your investment plus the interest.
What about bidding, premiums,
Yeah.
paying subs?
Different auction types. Sometimes you bid a premium above the lien amount. Paying subs means paying subsequent taxes that come due, adding to your investment and potential return. Important not to put too much into one property.
And bid down states.
Yeah, Arizona, Florida mentioned. You bid down the interest rate you're willing to accept. Lowest bidder wins the lien.
But due diligence is paramount here, right?
Absolutely critical. You must research the property before bidding. Condition, total taxes owed, other liens, environmental issues. Use those resources like EPA.gov, FEMA flood maps, crime reports.
Be careful with vacant land, too. It's a perk test, maybe.
Good point. Never bid blind. It's a recipe for disaster.
So if you win, you get a certificate if they don't redeem.
After the redemption period expires, you might be able to start foreclosure proceedings to take ownership of the property, but that's a whole other process. Understanding auction rules, interest rates, redemption periods is vital to avoid mistakes.
Fascinating, but definitely requires homework. Okay, last major topic. Starting your own business, specifically freelancing.
Huge trend. That Freelancers Union survey, 53 million Americans, 34% of the workforce back in 2014. It's likely even higher now.
Why the boom? Flexibility, control.
Those are big ones. Escaping downsizing, too. Benefits include setting your own hours, specializing, diversifying income, low overhead often.
Step 1. Where to find work?
General job boards like Indeed, LinkedIn. Industry-specific ones like Media Bistro for media. But the sources say your own contacts are often the best source.
Step 2. Organizing the business side.
Need a financial cushion first? Invoice quickly. Williams recommended within 2 days. Get progress payments for big projects to keep cash flowing.
Step 3. Taxes. Benefits and pitfalls.
Benefits, deducting home office, computer supplies, maybe even relevant toys, museum visits, conferences if business related.
Pitfalls.
Not working with a pro. Messy receipts, taking retirement money to fund it, big no-no. Waiting too long for help, forgetting sales tax if applicable. And the big one, not paying quarterly estimated taxes. Save 25-35% of income for taxes.
Step 4. Should you incorporate?
Big question. Unincorporated freelancers pay self-employment tax on all net income. Incorporating S Corp, LLC, C Corp offers liability protection.
Separates personal assets from business debts.
Right. And potentially lower taxes, especially with S Corp or LLCs allowing salary versus dividend distributions, though needs careful handling. C Corp offer flexibility but have double taxation.
And you have to follow the rules, right? Corporate maintenance.
Essential to keep that liability shield intact. Meetings, records, and paying yourself a reasonable wage is key if you own an incorporated business. IRS watches that.
Lots to consider there. Okay, winding down. The epilogue had 8 final thoughts from pros. Daily, medium, long-term.
Quick hits. Daily. Track spending. The red goal realization. Don't over budget. Keep it simple maybe. Make finances a family conversation. Factor in planned splurges. And take grocery coupons seriously. Pavini's tips on matching, circulars, potential savings.
Medium term. Pay yourself first via direct deposit. Make it automatic.
Long term. Automate savings generally. Attack high-interest credit card debt aggressively. And remember, wealth building is usually millions of small, good decisions over time. Practice, practice, practice.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, hopefully listeners feel they've got some solid takeaways from the sources you shared. We've covered a ton of ground.
We really have. I think some standout points were definitely the long-term impact of dividend reinvestment.
Powerful stuff.
The nuances and importance of the Social Security claiming decision.
So many factors there.
The potential, but also the risks of things like tax liens.
Requires caution.
And just that fundamental need for a save first mentality. It really underpins everything.
And like we said, becoming well-informed is an ongoing journey.
Oh.
Hopefully this gives listeners specific areas they might want to explore further based on what clicked for them.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep adapting.
So a final thought to leave everyone with based on everything we've chewed on today.
Okay.
Considering all these strategies, from mindset shifts to specific investment tactics, what's maybe one tangible financial action you feel most empowered or motivated to take this week to move just a little bit closer to your own financial goals?
That's a great question to reflect on. What's the next concrete step?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing these sources and trusting us to explore them in this deep dive.
My pleasure. Hope it was valuable.
We certainly hope it was enlightening for everyone listening.